In this video, I'm going to show you how to do an I-splice in 7/16 inch diameter tachyon rope. Tachyon has a reputation for being fairly difficult to splice because it has a really tight cover. But if you do a few basic tricks, it's really not too bad. The first step in doing the splice is to put the layout marks on the cover of the rope. To do that, we're going to use a 7/16 inch tubular fid, and we're going to lay it beside the rope and measure up the rope one tubular fid to mark A. And you can make these marks with a felt tip pen if you want. I like to use thread because it doesn't leave any ugly marks on my rope. Just go through the cover, being careful not to stick the core. Then from that mark, I know from experience that to do a tight eye on this rope, I need 3.5 inches of rope. So I'm going to measure up 3.5 inches from that mark, and I'll make mark B at 3.5 inches. Okay. All right, and then from mark B, I'm going to measure up one long fid to mark C. And if you look at a tubular fid, there's a couple little double marks right there. This is a short fid, and that from those two to the tip is a long fid. So we'll measure up one long fid from there, from mark B, and we'll make mark C. All right, now once we're at that point, from mark C, we're going to measure up the rope 5 fid lengths and tie a knot just to keep the core and the cover from moving above that point. So we just roughly, you don't need to do this exact, but about 5 fids up the rope. 3, 4, and 5. And then right above that, you're going to tie an alpine butterfly. Just grab the rope like that, pull some slack through, like that, and bring that back through, and get a butterfly. If you don't know how to tie a butterfly, you should learn, because it's an important knot for climbers. Okay, now once we're at that point, we can go back down to the beginning of the rope again, and we're going to start doing our layout for the taper marks on the cover. To do that, we take a felt tip marker and we count 8 strands towards the end of the rope, and I'll zoom in a little so you can see what I'm doing here. Okay, so we're going to count 8 strands from that string at point A. Just go 1, 2, 3. Okay, right there. So then at that point we're going to draw a dark line pretty much all the way around the rope, so it's real obvious, because this will be covered up in this place. Okay, and then from that point we want to do our taper. And to do that, we count off 3 strands and mark a pair, 4 strands, mark a pair, and so on until we have 6 pairs marked. So just start counting. Go 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and mark that pair. Okay. Then 4, and mark that pair. Then 3, mark that pair. Then 4, mark a pair. Then 3, mark a pair, and 4. You're just marking those little chevrons, okay? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have 6 pairs marked. That's what we want. Now the next step is to go back here to point B and remove the core from inside the cover. And I'll zoom out a little. So what we're going to do right there at point B, we're going to bunch up the core as much as we can, just to kind of get some slack in there. Just helps to makes it easier to get the core out. And then we're going to take our wire fid, and right there at that mark, at mark B, we're going to insert the wire fid in between a couple of strands. Push them down in there. You can actually take the string out at this point because it's just in your way. Okay, push that down in there. And use that to pry back and expose the core. Okay, so there's the core strand. See those white strands in there? That's your core. That's what you want to pull out. So take your fid at this point and stick it down in there. We got one strand. Okay, there we go. And you're going to use that fid to grab those core strands and start prying them up out of there. And use your, once you start to get them coming, just use your fingernails to pull back, push back on those cover strands, and the core will then start to come up and out of there. Just be patient, don't get in a big rush at this point, because if you get in a big rush and snag some cover strands, it'll ruin your splice. So just be gentle, push back on those cover strands until the cover comes popping out of there. It helps to bend the rope once it starts to come out of there. Just use your fingernails to work the rope down. Periodically, I kind of try to grab a little bit better purchase on the core. Be real careful you don't snag any of those cover strands with your tip of your marlin spike, or it'll ruin your whole day. Okay, there she comes. Sometimes these pop right out, and sometimes they can be kind of a pain, but if you're just patient and keep working that cover back like that as you pull the core up and out, okay, and bend the rope sharply now so that that cover will slide off of there. All right, got it. So at that point, just pull this core out of there. I like to put a clamp on the end of it just to keep it from unraveling on me. Okay, these pieces of plastic is just a manufacturer's mark. It's nothing we have to worry about. At this point, we want to pull that core all the way out of there, like that, and pull it out and expose those manufacturer's markers and cut those off. Just get rid of them. Okay. All right, so pull that all the way out and then go back up here to your eye and milk all that slack back out of there. Work it all the way back down to the point where the core comes out of the cover. Let's zoom back out just a little bit here. Okay. Okay, do that a couple times. Just milk all that slack out of there from the eye back towards the point where the rope comes out. There, right there. All right, at this point now, you can kind of ignore that. We'll fix that in a minute. Just make a mark where that core comes out of the cover. Then we're going to pull the core out of the cover, exposing as much of the core there as we can. And we have to do 3 marks on the core for the layout. Okay. Again, we're going to use the wire fid. So the first mark, you measure up 1 short fid from that initial mark or to the second mark. Okay, so there's mark 1, mark 2, and then from mark 2 we measure up a fid plus a short fid to mark 3. So we're going to go 1 fid right there and make a mark, and then come up a short fid above that, and there. So now we have 3 marks on the core. We've got mark 1, mark 2, and mark 3. All right, so the next step is to do the taper on the cover, on those marks we made earlier. So, and you can pull this out, this piece right here now. We don't need that string. Just start removing these strands, each pair. As you pull them out, be sure to pull away from the end of the rope. Pull this direction. Don't pull from this way or you'll bunch up the core or the cover and ruin your splice. So just start grabbing those with your marlin spike, get them started, and pull them out of there. They get easier after you get the first couple pairs out. Yeah, just be careful to pull away from the end of the rope. On some ropes you can use your marlin spike fairly aggressively here and just jerk these out, but with tachyon you need to be pretty careful or you'll bunch the rope up if you're not careful how you pull them out. Pull to it once if you want to, once you get a little farther along. All right, so there's our 6 pairs that are ready to be removed. And all we got to do is just go along and where they come out of the rope, cut them off. Okay, so there's our initial taper on the cover. Then we're going to go over here on this end, and first thing we're going to do is pull those. The purple strands got kind of a little messed up there, so we'll pull on these right down here at the end and pull that out of there. Okay, now we got a nice, neat piece of rope to work with. So here on this end, about the last 5 inches, we're going to remove down right about there. We're going to remove about half the strands just to reduce the volume of this last 5 inches. Doesn't have to be exact, but basically you're going to go back about 5 inches and you're going to start taking out strands. I usually remove about half the strands. It's not too critical, but if you don't do this, it's really hard to pull the core back through the cover. So just start popping those strands out. I take, again, about half the strands or a little less. Okay, we'll get 2 more there. All right, those we're just going to cut off. So now you can see the volume of the rope here is reduced considerably from above that point. The other thing we've got to do is go back here to point, here's point mark 1, here's mark 2, okay? And mark 3 is over here. Right here at mark 2, we're going to pull those purple the inner core out right there at mark 2. Just go in between the cover strands, look for those purple inner strands, and very gently with your marlin spike, grab just those purple strands and pull them out of there. And once you get them out, you can cut about cut them out about 7 or 8 inches long. Just let them stick out like that. All right. So now we're ready to start doing our berries. And the first part that I normally do is to pull the cover back through the core. To do that, we're going to go back here to mark 3 on the core, and we're going to pull some slack here just to bunch it up a bit, not too much. Okay, and we're going to take a wire fid and shove it in right there, and just very carefully run it down through the core without coming out through the side. Clear down here to mark 2. And right there at mark 2, we're going to come out and we're going to put the cover in the fid. Leave about 1.5 inches or so sticking out, and then just pull that back through the core. And if it gets hung up on these purple strands, just pull the purple strands back out. Pull it on through until you'll see it pop out over here. So there it is. Pull the purple strands back down through there if they get bunched up like that. There we go. Now put a clip on the end of that just to hold on to it so it can't go anywhere. Then we're going to go over here and we're going to bury the core inside the cover. And we want to do that from that mark that we made all the way around the rope. We're going to bury it from there all the way up here to this upper mark that we marked with the string, mark C. All right, to do that, it helps if you first pull a little slack and kind of bunch the rope up just to make it easier to pull things through there. And then we're going to stick this. We've got a wire fid here with a handle on it, okay? And we're going to run it through on the back side of the rope. Go right about there. Go between a couple of strands, and be careful not to snag the core. Run it through, and you want to come out over here at that mark that we made all the way around, and you want it to come out on the same side as the core. Okay, so the core is laying right here. It needs to go in right there. You wouldn't want to come out over here. Come out right between the strands right there with your wire fid. Just work it through, being careful not to snag, not to go through the middle of any strands. And then just take this and put that core through your wire fid. Be careful to get all the strands through like that. Pull it back so there's about 1.5 inches or so sticking out. Okay, and I also like to, at this point, take a tubular fid, shove it in there, and kind of enlarge that hole right there, just so that the core will go through there. Okay. All right. Now just pull on that, bring it in until it starts to come through, and pulling on your wire fid, just work that down in there until it starts to go through. And you'll see. Okay. So now she's pulling down in. Okay. Just keep pulling until you get over to here, bunch up the rope some, pull this out, and that just gives you more room right in here. So right now it's real tight, okay? So what I want to do is just reverse this, and that way I can hook the head of my wire, or my fid over here, hook it to a cleat or some kind of a solid point. I just hook it over my cleat, and that way I can, move the camera a little bit. So I hooked it to a cleat over here. Now I can pull on this and milk that cover over that. Okay, see it starting to come through there? Just keep milking it. You can feel it moving. And one more pull. It's almost through. See it coming through right there? Careful that it doesn't get tangled up in the purple strands. Pull them out periodically. Okay, we're just about through. Okay, so there we go. Pull through. So now we have everything we need to do our berries. So just keep pulling on these strands. Pull that core through the cover until it starts, the crossover starts to form. Then you need to go over here and take the clip off and pull on the cover until it starts to go down into the core like that. And you're gonna alternately pull on both ends of this to get that crossover to pull real tight. Just pull hard on that one and pull hard on this one. I like to grab them both and just kind of simultaneously pull in both directions. And that way I can suck that crossover down right nice and tight. Okay, so that's what it should look like. Okay, now we need to do two things. We need to do a final taper on the cover strands. And you know, recall we tapered part of it, but now we just need to do the final taper out here on the tail. To do that, first I'm going to pull this down out of there. Okay. I just start grabbing strands and cutting them off. And I take one strand about right there, cut that one off. Then I go up the rope just a little bit and I take another one. Pull that one out. Then go up the rope a little bit and take another one. Just keep doing that until you get all the way to the end of the rope. Just about there. Take a little more off these last several. Okay, let's see how that looks. Could be pretty good. We might take just a tad off that. Okay. All right, so that's ready to bury now inside. Before we do that, we need to bury these strands. And the way you want to do that is just pull them out of there until this kind of bunches up here, like that. And then cut one of them off right where it comes out of the core. Cut the next one about 2 inches longer, and the next one about 2 inches longer than that. Now when we pull all the slack out of here, all this will bury inside the core. So just start doing like that. You'll see the whole thing will just bury in there. Nice and smooth. So there, you know, there's our crossover. See how it's nice and tidy and tight? And all we have to do now before we do the final bury is get rid of this. To do that, we go back to the crossover and we hold on to the crossover and we milk all the slack out of the rope back down to that point. All right. And then we make a mark right there with our felt, right where that comes out of the rope. Then we're going to just grab a hold of this and pull on this until we can pull it all the way out as far as we can. Then we're just short of that mark that we just made. We've got about a 1/4 inch short of that. We're going to cut it off. Now we have to taper this little bit right here. Okay, and all we do to do that is I normally remove about at least 1/3 of the strands right down here, right where they come out. Just take a few of them out of there. Just to reduce the volume so you don't have a big bulge in your splice. That's probably good enough. Okay, now we're just going to flare this out and cut a long diagonal taper on all of those strands. So just get them all flared out. Kind of like that. You have to cut kind of at a strong angle to get it to taper right, but okay, and then just feel it and see if it feels like it tapers down to a nice point. I think we could take just a little more off there. Okay, perfect. Okay, so now we're ready to bury our splice. To do that, we're going to move back over onto a cleat. All right, so now I've got my rope and I've fastened it to a cleat over here, okay? And I'm going to bury bury our splice. So to do that, move over just a little here. Okay, so try to do this so you can see it. Okay, so what I want to do now is just hold this in my hand so that I keep tension on both sides of the eye as I pull on this. And if you watch, as I pull, you'll see that little bit of rope out there. It'll bury inside the cover. So just keep pulling and milking that cover down, and the cover will cover it up. Now, again, keeping tension on both sides so that we don't get any bunching, I'm going to start milking this slack over the eye. Initially, it goes really quick. I mean, you can actually bury that in there really fast. So you can see what's going on there. I'll move the camera a little more here. Now, as you get nearer the end, it gets harder and harder. But basically, you just keep milking the slack and the cover over the core. Go all the way down to and just keep, see how that's going inside there? That's what you want it to do. And keep going, keeping tension on both sides and pulling hard until you get about to there. Then you're going to start to need a carabiner in there to hold on to it. Okay, I use the carabiner to keep it really tight. And I'm going to go down and I'm going to start pulling the slack. And this is where you need to, right as you get towards the end here, you want to pull hard and keep tension on both sides. See how that's going in there? It'll get progressively harder as you get towards the end. Just keep going all the way down to the end and pulling slack. See how it bunches up right in here? That's the slack that needs to go over that part of the rope. So just pull hard. This is where you got to pull really hard, but you can see it's going. Go a little farther west here. All right. So go down and grab more and milk slack. And when you get to right here, pull hard. So it's going. It's getting closer. Massage it each time. And then go back down, milk slack. And when you get to the end, pull hard. Okay, we're almost in there. See that? Just massage it some more. This is where it gets to be work. But we're almost to the point where the core is going inside. Grab some more slack, pull hard, and pull real hard. So see now, the core just went inside. But we still have a ways to go because we want this eye to be a real tight eye. And I like to switch hands because it gets to be hard work if you do it all with one hand. So I'm going to switch to my other hand here. And I'm going to pull. And right here I'm going to pull hard with both hands. They were almost there. Not quite. Just massage it real good. Okay. We're getting close. Closer yet. Okay, a couple more times and we'll have it. Okay, right here at the end, pull hard. Almost there. One more. Pretty darn good. I could probably still go just a little more. I think I'll try one more. I think we're good. Now, the other thing we have to do to finish this now, this is all bunched up right here, we need to get that bunching out of there. So to do that, we're going to go back over to our cleat and hook this end of the rope to the cleat. So we'll go right back over there. Okay, so here I just take this end here, put it around like that, and pull the bunching out right here. Just pull real hard until all the bunching works out of the cover there. All right, so we're done. There is a tie-dye spliced in tachyon rope. Still need to do a whip lock here to secure the splice so it can't work loose, but essentially it's done in terms of the actual splice.